Let us pray. May this Founders Day service begin in mindfulness, in wakefulness. As creation breathes a still note, as our feet rest lightly on mother ground, let us pause, knowing that in every beating heart is a silent undercurrent that calls each of us to a place unknown, to the vision of a wiser life, to become what we feel we must be, but cannot name. Divine Presence, you made us like unto you, Bodhicitta, Holy Spirit, Atman, breath. We are your body born in matter, gazing upon your creation in sacred reflection. May a new revelation, a new universal story guide our mission and vision on this Founders Day, one that respects the biodiversity of life, the tapestry of human cultures and intersections, and the wide expanse of the cosmos. Bless us with a single-minded willingness to penetrate what has become stagnant, staid, or unholy, to offer unto the ultimate our limited self, in gratitude for the gift of the immeasurable. Teach us to tenderly cultivate the qualities of wisdom, mercy, gentleness, humility, compassion, fearlessness, honesty, and a generosity of spirit, even as we purge ancient sins, engaging in a single-hearted search for what matters in life, any life, every life. As we rest in the holiness of time as witnesses to the frailty of contemporary society, and at the same time, the endurance of the human spirit, shaken off our social foundations by a global calamity, struck by the sight of impermanence, as we grieve the loss of colleagues and family members, mentors, and friends. Transform us with divine light. Expand the capacity of our hearts so that we can transcend and transform suffering, bringing the potential into the actual. May this Founders Day service also end in mindfulness, in wakefulness, as creation breathes yet another still note, breathed into us like a banquet of spring flowers in full bloom. May we come to know the kind of spiritual and social consciousness needed now and here as we grapple with the built-in uncertainties of a commercial world in the throes of philosophical division. Creation breathes once more as the divine reaches down into every suffering and lifts us up. Sing on, dear friends, sing on, and let no one dampen the chords that ring in each of our hearts. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Allman. Welcome to our 2022 Founders Day convocation. I am so delighted that we can meet here in person and also delighted to have many joining us by live stream. This is my first Founders Day on campus, and I know that might be true for many of you. And like our newest students, faculty, and staff, I am still learning about Wake Forest, learning what makes this place so special, and how we, each of us, will contribute in our own way to the university's distinctive story. Today is a celebration, but it's also a convocation, a calling together. That is, we are gathered to solemnly reflect upon our past and how it relates to our current moment and to our future. Part of any honest reflection on the past requires honoring the parts that fill us with pride and acknowledging where we have fallen short. This is not to sully the good, but to empower ourselves to continually strive forward. Now, as a scientist, I'm accustomed to asking lots of questions. But my own way of thinking about Founders Day centers on one question in particular. What does it mean to be a founder? For obvious reasons, we think of the year 1834 when we think of the founding of Wake Forest. And it was 187 years ago that Wake Forest was founded about 100 miles east of here. And while clearly we would not be here today if not for our opening in 1834, we cannot deny that our history, like that of our state and of our nation, is tied up with slavery, segregation, and significant injustices. We shouldn't shy away from these aspects of our past. Instead, we should confront them. And most importantly, as an institution with knowledge creation at our core, we must learn from them. That's why I'm proud of the important work being done by the Wake Forest Slavery, Race, and Memory Project, and particularly for our membership in the Universities Studying Slavery Consortium, along with 87 other universities. We are working together to share best practices and guiding principles about truth-telling projects that address injustice in our histories. This is part of how we recognize that traditions, like communities, need to grow, to evolve, and to expand to include more people. We also need to recognize that not everything about Wake Forest was founded in the antebellum era. For example, in 1894, our law school was founded. In 1902, our medical school. In 1923, the Demon Deacons burst onto the scene. And in 1942, women were first admitted to the college. And then, in 1956, the college relocated to this beautiful campus here in Winston-Salem. My point is that Wake Forest is a place where many things have begun, where the act of founding is continuous. To found is a verb, an action, not a single set moment in some distant past. Another way to think about this is that Wake Forest does not rest on a single slab, static foundation, but on a growing number of piers and beams that together hold us up. We're here today, and we are who we are today because of many foundings and many founders. Together, they and we helped define Wake Forest's story. Consider the year 1962, 60 years ago. This was the year that the Board of Trustees finally voted to admit African American students. It was the year that Ed Reynolds became the first full-time Black student to enroll at Wake Forest. And it was the year that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke in this very chapel. Something incredibly important happened that year, 1962. Something new and beautiful was founded then, but it wasn't easy. Faculty and student activism played a vital role in moving to end exclusion. Many on campus simply wanted to get on with their work and studies. They didn't want the necessity of distraction and controversy that often accompanies the march of justice. And ultimately, this community worked together to create the foundation upon which a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive Wake Forest could be built, one we continually strive to build today. There are other examples of more inclusive foundings that form the parts of the Wake Forest story. In 2000, Susan Parker and Wendy Scott were married here in Wake Chapel. This was after a 3-year battle where Wake Forest students played a leading role in efforts to overturn the ban on same-sex marriage ceremonies on campus. And this year, 2022, we celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the founding of the LGBTQ+ Center on campus. These milestones are points of pride, but also events that we should think about deeply as we consider our own contributions to Wake Forest today. What is it that we will found? What is it that we will found? Being a founder means being fearless. It means advocating for positive change. It means reflecting and settling, and not simply settling on getting on with our work and studies. It means engaging in radical collaboration with others. It means cultivating respectful and open dialogues with those with whom we may disagree. And it means embodying our motto, pro humanitate. These traits are critical if we are to be great founders. And Wake Forest is, and strives to be, great. So today, I want to call on all of us to be founders for the future and engage in the continued hard work needed to be a great university. In a moment, Professor Erica Still is going to speak to us about one of our most renowned and beloved Wake Foresters, Maya Angelou. Dr. Angelou founded so much good work on our campus. She is rightly part of our celebration today. She is also being honored nationally this year, having been chosen to grace the new edition of the U.S. Quarter. This is a proud moment for our campus she called home for over 30 years. In 2011, she said, "I have great respect for the past, but you don't know where you've come from. If you don't know where you've come from, you don't know where you're going. But I'm a person of the moment." 2 years later, in 2013, not long before she died, she said that, "Heritage is so complex, we have to be simple, consider ourselves global. It takes a lot of courage, but humans are more alike than we are unalike." So today, I leave you with her wise words. Here at Wake Forest, we know our heritage is complex, and we have great respect for the complexity of our past. After all, without it, we would not be where we are today. But we are also an institution constantly looking for ways to expand the narrative, which is why we heed Dr. Angelou's call to be globally minded people of the moment. I am so eager to see what we can found together. Thank you. I would now like to invite Dr. Erica Still to the podium. Dr. Still is an associate professor of English, and she serves as associate dean for faculty recruitment, diversity, and inclusion in the college. She is also an accomplished scholar on contemporary African American literature. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Erica Still.
Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. The confidence, the faith, the sheer determination expressed in this closing stanza of Still I Rise, one of Dr. Maya Angelou's most well-known poems, the utter defiance and deep joy animating this declaration, this aspiration, all of that energy marks the newly minted U.S. Quarter featuring this great poet who spent so many years as a member of the Wake Forest community. The coin bears an imprint of a young Maya with arms raised as if in flight, readily evoking the imagery of the poem. It celebrates the author and poet as a phenomenal woman who knew why the caged bird sings. As the first African-American woman featured on the quarter, Dr. Angelou joins and expands a well-known set of founders, namely those founding fathers we venerate with our coins and dollars. The irony here is striking to me. A Black woman who would have once been a commodity bought and sold herself has now become the face of the currency that authorized such transactions. It's a lot to unpack there, it seems to me. In this moment, however, I want to share the idea that struck me when I first heard about the quarter. Really, I thought, a quarter? That's so basic, so ordinary. It didn't stop me, though, from wanting to have one. And then I remembered people actively collect quarters. And that's because they are, or at least they can be, worth so much more than their face value. So what a fitting way, I now think, to honor and celebrate Maya Angelou. She took what was all around her, the ordinary things of her life, of our lives, and she made them extraordinary. In her art and her wisdom, she pointed to the beauty and the pain, to be sure, in the mundane. She taught us to see life's extraordinary possibilities, to see that we are ourselves extraordinary possibilities. Gathered here on this Wake's very own Founders Day, let us remember that lesson. Let's create anew what our founders, those named as such, and those as yet unnamed, but no less essential. What they started for us, let us create anew. Let's dream new visions and build new realities, bringing the gifts of our ancestors, rising to our truest calling. When you leave Wake Chapel today, you will be given a Maya Angelou quarter. I invite you to keep this quarter as a tangible reminder that we too are more than our face value, that we all have powerful stories to tell, and that we are all rich with extraordinary possibility. In just a moment, we will remember those we have lost from our community. And as some of you may have heard, Maya Angelou's son, Guy Johnson, recently, or just became a part of the community that we have lost, what some might call a great cloud of witnesses. In the spirit of our remembering those that have lost, or those that we have lost, I'll end with my favorite Maya Angelou poem, When Great Trees Fall. It reminds me that through our times of pain and grief, we can emerge remade. As we reflect, May these lines capture the depth of our sorrow at our friend's departure and the dreams of pro-humanitate they still inspire. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forest, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound up to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. And now I'd like to welcome President Wente back to the stage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sill, for those insightful and powerful remarks. Today is our first in-person convocation since February 2020. Now, 2 years later, the pandemic has affected every community across our world. Here at Wake Forest, not only have we endured many disruptions to our educational and professional journeys, we have lost coworkers, family members, and friends. Many of us and the people we love have fallen ill. We have been anxious. We have struggled. We have lost the comfort of cherished routines and the rhythms of normal life, some of which we also learned we had taken for granted. In many ways, the last 2 years have been a season of loss for each of us. And for that reason, it is important for all of us to pause, allow time to reflect, and to be in community with one another. Let us take a moment now to remember those Wake Foresters who have passed on since our last Founders Day convocation.
Thank you, Chris and the choir, for that beautiful remembrance. Good afternoon, I'm Tony Marsh, Senior Associate Dean of Faculty in the College and Professor of Health and Exercise Science. Really effective public speakers, orators, have been celebrated throughout human history. Orators remain important figures in our contemporary culture too, the best inspiring us with speeches that are mesmerizing, like Erica's, with their gift of words and knowledge while challenging us to think more deeply or differently about their subject matter. The art of the spoken word has long been a critical component of a classical or liberal arts education. The more educated the person, the stronger the rhetorical training one received. This is no surprise to us at Wake Forest. We all know that the art of the spoken word is as essential today as at any time in the past. And I believe we can all agree that developing excellent communication skills are at the core of a liberal arts education. Today, all of you and our senior orator are about to become part of a 187-year-old Wake Forest tradition of senior orations. Think about that for a second. Wake Forest students have been giving orations for more than 9 generations. In 1834, Wake Forest's first year, the school enrolled just 16 students, all young men. They organised a debate society that first year, and then the next year they organised another one, so they could have competing debate societies. And to this very day, we take debate very seriously at Wake Forest. In fact, so important was public speaking as part of a Wake Forest education that for almost 50 years, all seniors were required to give a public speech in front of the entire school in order to graduate, unless excused by the faculty. I expect excused absences didn't happen too frequently. Fortunately for our seniors, the times and more importantly, graduation requirements have changed. We've long since turned this venerable rite of passage into a voluntary one. This year, essays were submitted by students who were nominated by college faculty and staff. A panel of faculty read all the essays, blinded to name, and selected 10 that were presented last week following a rescheduling due to the fire before a public audience of students, faculty, staff, parents, and friends in Pew Auditorium, and live streamed for those that were not able to be present. Faculty judges chose the oration you will hear this afternoon. For nearly 2 centuries, the Wake Forest community has had the opportunity to listen to and learn from our talented senior orators, and today will be no exception. Our orator has chosen a member of the Wake Forest community who knows them very well to do their introduction, Dr. Jose Villalba. Dr. Villalba is Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer. His work focuses on equity and access on Wake Forest's campus, and his office is instrumental in fostering a diverse and inclusive climate for faculty, staff, and students. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Villalba.
Good afternoon. I am humbled and excited to introduce B. Pearson, this year's senior orator. I first met B in the spring of 2019, almost 3 years to the day. And I am grateful for every chance I've had to learn with her and from her. I told B shortly after we met that she was a force. And she has lived up to that notion in all she has gifted to this campus, to this community. In every way possible, B has been and will always be a founder of our university. B is from Mount Holly, New Jersey, and is majoring in history with minors in American Ethnic Studies and Politics and International Affairs. B is currently deciding which opportunities to pursue after graduation. As for her senior oration, it is titled, Seized at the Root.
So I met the lovely Shannon yesterday, who's helped me understand the run of show, so hopefully I don't stress her out when I pause to extend some thanks. My parents are here, and though the last few years has definitely had some growing pains, they deserve all the credit and sacrifice for me being able to stand up here after they came here to learn and grow in college, to make their parents proud, who did not have the access and the privilege that I've had. And this whole experience has really shown me the expansions of the words family and love. I was sitting over there growing anxious, and Dean Walton began to point out the dust in the vents. And my dad loves to point out the dust in the vents. And he told me to tell him that they were on the same page. And yesterday, my mom asked me what I was going to wear, and I wasn't sure. I said probably some pants, and she was like, well, you know, I thought you might wear a dress, but whatever makes you feel comfortable. And I realized what makes me feel comfortable is to just be close to them in their love. And so I hope that standing up here in my dress under the vents, they are as proud of me as I am of them. So my oration is seized at the root. It takes 109 minutes to get from my parents' house in the woods to the gates of my forest. The windy road is not very scenic. It doesn't feature an irresistible snack spot. Its highways, back roads, and pit stops are all unremarkable, yet here I am describing it. I have memorized the twists of the bypass and the turn onto MLK Drive, not because of where I was coming from, but because I was headed home. Don't get me wrong, I cherish my 2 parents, 3 brothers, 3 sisters, and a partridge in a pear tree. My family and I have lived up and down the East Coast, forwarding mail from Massachusetts to Florida to North Carolina to New Jersey, and then all the way back again. My favorite memories come from those moments when we were in motion. But I never once imagined myself trading my northern lifestyle for a southern campus framed by magnolia trees. My family was a tight-knit haven, but by my senior year of high school, I was yearning for stability. Well, these last 4 years of Wake have been anything but stable. What surprised me is what I could learn in this sea of unrest. For wide-eyed first-year me, the calm before the storm went by the name BUILD, a pre-orientation program that was largely BIPOC students coming together to learn about leadership and diversity. We spent a few days munching on Moe's, another few with a local alum, and the last doing all sorts of leadership activities. At the end of the first week, there was a large dinner for every pre-orientation student. Here, the contrast first came into view. My group was small and mostly comprised of Black students, but other groups like Spark and Deacon Camp, let's just say they literally paled in comparison. They dwarfed us in size and were largely white. Our eyes were settled on different goals, different wakes. They practiced old tradition while we were dreaming up new policies. Soon this trend would continue. On to first year, and like probably everyone my age, I had the typical college experience of decimated friendships, unrequited crushes, and disappointing math grades. I remember getting lost on the way to my FYS, tucked away in the maze-like halls of Tribble. I cried over chicken from the grill station after I bungled my audition for an a cappella group. But I experienced the atypical as well. I crowded into the then all too small Black Student Alliance lounge to reel at the sight of blackface photos. I choked back tears as I described the realities of campus racism to our then college president. I was procrastinating in Benson when my friends and I received death threats from white supremacists online. Remember that contrast that I mentioned previously? Here it was again. Most of my peers were rushing Greek organizations or battling with introduction to accounting. But me, I was standing in front of hundreds, fervent, trying to name what Black and brown students, faculty, and staff needed to survive. So in all this instability and pressure, I lost track of the normal, but I found myself. and I somehow found a home at Wake. It is easy to see this as a list of stresses or breaking points, as something unique or terrible that I had to deal with, but it is not. I know that every personal triumph made me stronger. Every trial expanded my community, and that community deals with these trials every year. During that first year, I met Dr. Josel Villalba, who is now a trusted mentor and friend. After the initial digital scare, I closed my computer, and soon we were laughing and sipping on milkshakes in staunch defiance of racist aims. I clung to this campus. I spent hours in meetings arguing about policy. I spoke about my yearning for better. I searched for and found allies in all of the dissension, being stretched by these moments and stretched into the outline of a strong person and proud demon deacon that I am today. Often when I relay these stories, I am met with discomfort or pitying eyes. But this isn't a tale about how challenge dragged me down. In chaos and stress, I have been built up. Over the next 3 years, I remained uncomfortable, squirming as I sat on the President's Commission for Race and Community, fidgeting as I helped curate identity-focused programming for the Women's Center, shivering before taking the digital stage with famed friends of Maya Angelou. These moments weren't about ease, but growth. Wake Forest, all of us here, have been doing the same thing through pandemics, new presidents, and unprecedented change. We have been growing, and it has not been easy. All around us, faculty are overhauling curriculum requirements, staff are drafting and redrafting policies, and students are asking for, no, demanding better. This work is exhausting and thankless at times, and as we reckon with our history, we must also look to an equitable future. In this, the lesson of embracing discomfort as we build a home like Wake is all the more applicable. I leaned into that sensation and its lessons because just like my childhood, being uprooted allows you to flourish and to seize hold of new fertile ground. For those who also find themselves feeling uncomfortable, find power there. I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Bea. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for bringing your parents here to share them with us, too. Thank you for leaning in, for being fearless, for having courage. We are a better place for you. Thank you. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the recipient of the 2022 Wake Forest University Medallion of Merit. In 2005, he was appointed the 13th president of Wake Forest University. During his 16-year tenure, Wake Forest expanded its physical and academic scope with examples like Wake Washington, Wake West, Wake Downtown, and new programs in biomedical sciences and engineering. Wake Forest healthcare footprint was also expanded when existing entities were merged to form Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. His conviction that higher education should nurture character as well as intellect manifested in his founding of the Leadership and Character Program. We also became the first top national university to offer test-optional admissions and became a national leader in college-to-career experience. Just like Wake Forest, his reputation precedes him. And what he built here has made this university the kind of place that students, faculty, and staff, and even myself, could imagine joining and leading. On a personal note, let me add that he was incredibly gracious, spending time with me by Zoom every week between February and July last year as I was preparing to come on board. I am now so pleased to share this special video highlighting some of his accomplishments.
Welcome to Wake Forest University's 2020 Founders Day.
It's hard to think about the legacy of Dr. Hatch without thinking about where doesn't his legacy reside in the institution.
The right person at the right place at the right time to lead our university. That is what Nathan Hatch will be remembered for.
I first met Nathan Hatch when I was a member of the search committee for the next president for Wake Forest. And I was super excited, frankly, that he was such a talented teacher scholar, someone who was really deeply dedicated to liberal arts education and liberal arts learning, who cared deeply about the student experience. That's what we're all about at Wake Forest.
He came across as a person that was very genuine about wanting to make the student experience better for students, but also caring not only about students, but me as a person. And I think he values those connections of getting to know people at who they really are.
My first day was Dr. Hatch's first day. So I feel in many ways that I followed his footsteps on this journey that he helped lead us on. And I'm a better human being because of it.
Nathan really helped me understand that a leader is only as good as the people she surrounds herself with.
He believed that creating a room full of great thinkers, purposeful stewards that brought talents from different places would accomplish for Wake Forest University these incredible outcomes.
There aren't that many women CEOs of medical centers in the country, and I never felt that no one would listen to me or not care about my opinion, because he made sure that we were partners in all of this.
He was very intentional about building trusting relationships and then listened intently to those that he trusted.
And when you have trust within a team with a whole different set of skill sets, and maybe more importantly, different outlooks, I think you can move mountains. I really believe you can move mountains. Nathan evinced throughout his 16 years as president an incredible commitment to both radical tradition and radical innovation.
He's always thinking about how can we make this place better? How can we, improve the outcome for students, give them more opportunity, expand their horizons?
Well, part of it is you need to change to get better, right?
Nathan had a terrific imagination, but he also took that imagination to a step of resolve.
I think we all have the experience of seeing Dr. Hatch, where you bring us some new idea and you can see him start smiling and getting giddy about something.
You could see that kind of look in his face when he was like, we're going to do this. We are going to take this to the finish line.
It really taught me that, anything worth doing means that you may have to take a leap or a jump to do it.
At every juncture, I believe Nathan Hatch saw the opportunity to remain true to who we are, yet also to expand our boundaries where we can make a real impact on humanity.
It was Dr. Hatch that really taught me to say, hey, education can be dynamic. It can be a place where you are really at the forefront of solving problems, and not only for higher education, but for the world.
Everything was about Wake Forest and something much bigger than himself, and that gave him the confidence to bring in great leaders around him that would reflect his values, that wanted the same things that he did.
He's put his mark on the university in a way that I think we'll always look to him as a North Star for who Wake Forest wants to be and the kind of leadership we want to imagine Wake Forest presenting to the world.
It's really important to note how incredibly valuable his wonderful wife, Julie Hatch, was to the Wake Forest community.
She was willing to go all in and contribute in many, many ways at Wake Forest. And I think we see them as a team that accomplished many, many things together over 16 years.
Someone receiving the Medallion of Merit, our highest honor at Wake Forest, it means a lot. It means that the person is someone that Wake Forest should want to be like.
He gave his life to serve Pro Humanitate and leave Wake Forest better than he found it. And I think he still cares deeply today about Wake Forest and its success. That tells me that the whole story was not about him. It was about the community and about building a great institution.
Dr. Hatch, thank you for letting me not only be on this journey with you, 16 incredible years, but a lifetime in which to come. Thank you for being my friend.
I've loved learning from you, seeing how you've led in a way that's epitomized your deepest convictions and your love of people and your desire for the institution and its mission to be fully realized.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for teaching me so many things in the years we got to work with each other. And thank you for still being my friend. And I know you'll be a trusted confidant when I have my questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hatch, for seeing this guy from a middle-class upbringing from Georgia who probably didn't understand what higher education really was, but listening to me, helping me develop skills that I currently use to today. I owe it all to Dr. Hatch.
Nathan, it's been an incredible journey to work with you across these 16 years. I'm a better faculty member, I'm a better university citizen, and I'm a better leader because of the ways you have challenged me and the ways you have supported me and the exemplary way you have led Wake Forest.
Thank you for your commitment to Pro Humanitate and your service to Wake Forest University as its leader. Well done, good and faithful servant. We count it as a high honor and a privilege to be your friend.
In gratitude for his commitment to scholarship and excellence, for his service to Wake Forest, for his dedication to Pro Humanitate, the university confers its highest honor, the Medallion of Merit, upon President Emeritus Nathan O. Hatch on this 17th day of February, 2022. Please join me.
Thank you, choir. I'm Jonathan Lee Walton, Dean of the School of Divinity in Wade Chapel. And as we prepare to conclude and transition from this Founders Day convocation, we would ask that you would all join us to gather for food and fellowship in the narthex immediately following the concluding words. Please meet us there. Today we convened in this annual convocation to consider a question. We asked this question, President Wente asked this question in a couple of different ways. What does it mean to be a founder? What is our responsibility to this institution? Well, longtime university chaplain Ed Chrisman used to ask these questions differently. He would ask all entering students one question: what's in a name? Well, as we prepare to leave this place, this is our challenge and our charge. We ought to consider all that's in the name Wake Forest, for there's so much brilliance and beauty in the name. There's the devotion of Ed Wilson and the artistry of Maya Angelou in the name. There's the courage of Mac Bryan and the moral imagination of Elizabeth Phillips. That's in the name. There's the boldness of Sister Bree. There's the compassion of Crenshaw. There's the resilience of Hopkins, the wisdom of Hatch, the tenderness of Hardy, the persistence of Parent, the memory of Morgan, the erudition of Urey. That's the name Wake Forest. The humanistic flourishing of Dean Franco, the patience of Weaver Paff, the sense of humor of Shamika, the magnificence of Mazaris, and the peace of Still. And when we hear the beauty of this choir, we hear the positive attitude of Josh Prelima, the discipline of Aditi, the attentiveness of Elsa, the consistency of Kana, and the intuitive impulses of Nathaniel Avery. These names, your name, define this institution. These names, your name, can establish the direction of our future. These names, your name, have the potential to extend the purpose of Pro Humanitate. This is our ideal. This, my friends, is our aspiration. So go ahead, get out of your seat now, head to the narthex, and let's use our names each and every day to make it so. Amen.